He's going live to Facebook really quick. Hi, all. Welcome to the Creative Entrepreneur panel. So happy to have you all here today. We have some really great guests that I'm super excited to introduce you to. And so today we are going to be speaking to Nancy Ruzow, graphic designer, and Kayla Peepcow, creative direction and branding, Shay Charles, brand strategist. So really excited to have you all introduce yourselves and tell us more about what you're doing and who you are. And when you do, answer the question, what does Artrepreneur mean to you? And I'm going to pass the mic to Nancy.
Okay. Well, designs I created for the University of Oxford helped land a $240 million donation for a new building and new season materials, including a 360-page document for the NFL rookie players, helped enter the world of digital materials for the NFL. I'm Nancy Ruzow, a fractional art director and graphic designer who helps my clients see how the right designs connect the dots between their brands and their customers. I work with marketers and marketing departments, writers, and agencies as their design partner and strategist. Entrepreneur basically to me means being an entrepreneur where I do design and creative work at all times. It's everything around me, and it is been my way of life for 37 years.
Thank you. That is such a great introduction. I really appreciate it. Shay, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Introduce yourself and answer the question, what does Artrepreneur mean to you?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shay Charles. I'm a brand strategist. I'm also a brand designer and a web designer. In the past, I was an architect and a footwear designer. The name of my company is Brand Plus Design. When it comes to my strategy work and also my brand design work, I work mostly with fashion, luxury, and lifestyle clients. I help them make their brands as memorable as possible, and I also do my utmost to connect their main customers to their brand on a very emotional level. So I've worked with a bunch of clients over the years through the business, and even before then, I was a freelancer from 2014 to 2019 before I started the business. So when I hear the word entrepreneur, I mean, what I think of is someone who is creative, but is also business minded, runs a business, and they also need to align with people who function with the right side of their brain, which is artsy, and also the left side of their brain. So an entrepreneur is someone who uses their full brain. Let's put it that way.
I enjoy using my full brain, so I like that explanation.
Me too.
Thank you, Shay. And we're going to hear from Kayla. So introduce yourself and tell us, what does Artrepreneur mean to you?
Yeah, hey branding buddies, Kayla here. I am the crazy dog lady and owner and creative director of Docs Design. It's my passion to bring bold, daring, and purposeful missions and visions of small business owners to life through the power of what we call drool-worthy brand identity. So alongside my trusty team of fabulous illustrators and designers and copywriters, we band together every single day to turn our clients' unique vision into brand identities. So we like to call it drool-worthy design. And when I hear Artrepreneur, that's kind of a mouthful to say. We always kind of say that we take design and we visually storytell a brand's mission and vision. And I think it's kind of what Shay just said. Artrepreneur is bridging the gap between that creative side, but still giving it purpose. So having that business like-minded and not just giving someone something that's trendy, but actually really getting to know for us, like our clients and their story, and bridging that gap between the business side of thing and the visual side of thing as well.
Thank you, Kayla. That was so great. I'm really excited to have this conversation with all of you today and get to know you better. So we're going to get things kicked off with our first question. And so for our first question, we're going to hear, how did you get started and what are your biggest milestones so far? And you could even throw in, what you're hoping to do too. And we can do some future pacing and some manifestation here today. So I'm going to pass the mic to Nancy and would love to hear how you get started and your biggest milestone so far.
Okay, how I got started. So, when the earth was just turning green, I went to design school before computers, before email, and I learned how to design. I then tried to pound the pavement in New York and did not have a lot of luck because I didn't go to a school in New York City, which was something that my mom did not allow because she had gone to Juilliard and commuted and said, no one will go to school in New York. So I moved out of state, got a job as a graphic designer. After a year working, I was able to come back in, and I worked in the advertising department of magazines, most notably Playboy, and I created all of their ads and promotions for them. And then I decided to start my own business because my brother had his own business and my dad had his own business. And so I sent out letters to people and then brought my portfolio and sometimes dropped my portfolio off, which was a thing back then. And I started getting clients. And I used to take everything that came my way. And I have definitely niched down to doing documents, logos and branding, and ads. If a website is part of a branding package, I will do it. Otherwise, I'm not really interested. And I work with a lot of great people. I like to collaborate. It's really my big thing is to be able to bring other people in on projects and collaborate. Probably my was it my biggest project you said, or what was the project focus that you
Biggest
gave?
milestone.
Biggest milestone. I would just say starting my own business was a real big milestone. It was just, I didn't know anything about getting insurance or anything, and I just flew by the seat of my pants and dove in, and here I am 37 years later, pretty successful. So that would be it for me.
I love that. And I can't believe this is the first time I'm hearing about your Playboy experience. That's amazing. So cool. What was your favorite project at Playboy?
There was a Joan Collins, well, there were two. There was a Joan Collins interview, and so she appeared nude in the magazine. And so we had to wrap the interview, so we just designed a piece that had her interview inside, and you literally undressed Joan as you were opening up the piece. So that was a lot of fun. And the other thing, which my husband, then boyfriend, really enjoyed, was that we put on the first strip-a-thon, male and female, at the Limelight Cafe. And I designed all the graphics and helped create everything for that. And it was just a lot of fun. And the men were much better strippers than the women.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's amazing. I am so happy we got to hear these stories today. That's epic. I want to look for that copy and strip Joan. That's just so great. What a fun project. So I'm going to pass the mic to Kayla and would love to hear how you got started and what's your biggest milestone so far.
Yes. So I, like many, went to design school with kind of the one agency path drilled into our head through our crazy professors of, you got to move to a big city, you got to work as an agency, do the grunt work of a junior designer, work your way up the totem pole, be a senior designer, be a creative director. I always knew that being a creative director was my end goal. So, did the design school thing, graduated, got my first job in one of the top agencies in Midwest. I was working with big brands like Apple and Target. And I absolutely hated it. I hated working 9 to 5. I hated the office environment. I hated the agency grunt work. I hated not being heard as a young female designer in the space. And so I kind of was feeling restless and like my cup wasn't being filled. I wasn't feeling creatively inspired. And as you guys can tell, I'm a huge dog person. So I have 3 dachshunds, and they were actually the inspiration for me to start my business. I hated leaving them every day in a cage for 8 hours and just seeing their little faces. And so I wanted to take my 2 favorite things, dogs and design, and kind of create something that no one had ever done before because the freelancing space was so saturated. So Docs Design was born. We started out primarily focusing on branding for pet products, pet retailers. And from there, we now just hit our 5th year in business. I have a team of 6 designers. We now service all niches. And I would say kind of similar to what Nancy said. I think starting my business was a big milestone, but specifically this year, when I started my business, I wrote down my 5 dream clients. And this year, we just worked with number 3 of the 5. So that's been a huge milestone for us.
I love that. Congratulations. What an amazing feat. And you still can fit those other 2 so easy for the rest of the year. Q2, you were at the end of Q2 and you already have 3. That's so great.
Yes.
So, what is your goal when you hit all 5? Because I know you're going to, you do great work.
Thank you. Man, I need to get really better at celebrating my wins. My husband was just talking to me about this. He's like, as soon as you hit your win, you like move on to the next goal. So I think probably just pausing and reflecting, maybe having like a nice dinner with my family or something to celebrate the win.
I love that. That's great. Congratulations. So I'm going to pass the mic to Shay. And Shay, how did you get started and what has been your biggest milestone so far?
I think I would say my path would be the most convoluted out of the 3 of us, because I started out in architecture school. I went to school for architecture first, and initially I'd always like wanted to study product design. I wanted to be a car designer, but growing up in Nigeria, for those who don't know, that's where I grew up. I came here for college, and having Nigerian parents, there are basically 3 or 4 professions that you can enter into. And outside of those 4, I mean, they would disown you, especially if you're from a middle class family. If you're not a doctor, an engineer, an architect, a lawyer, and maybe something else, I don't know. So my dad was like, no, I'm not going to have you study anything creative if you want to keep the family name. So I went to school for architecture, and I was actually pretty good at it because even before I graduated, I already had a position at one of the biggest firms in Nigeria. And at the tail end of graduating, I was offered a project by the Archdiocese of the city that I lived in, which was, the Catholic Church, to design. Probably was going to be the most modern church in that region. And yeah, the Archbishop, he signed off on the project right off the bat, and I did not know that was not normal. It was later on that the client told me, that never happens. He's never done that before. He didn't see drawings. All he did was show him a model. So my path to success was it was already paved. But then I did not like architecture. I did not see myself doing it for the next 10 years. And my joy had always been designing products. And then I would mess around with graphic design. So I told my parents that I was going to leave everything right after architecture school, move to the US and study industrial design at the school that I've always loved and dreamed about, Savannah College of Art and Design. So they did not support me at first. So it was quite the leap. But then, I ended up, going through the industrial design program. At the tail end of it, I fell in love with accessories design, and I started designing shoes. I got an opportunity to work for Kenneth Cole as a shoe designer. I did really well there, but I was only there for 2 years. Because I've always been an entrepreneur. I always wanted to own my own business. I wanted to start an accessories design company. I did my research and I found out that it was a buyer's market. Basically, the retailers control everything, no matter how good your designs are. Like if Macy's doesn't like what you're designing, you're not going to sell them. Yeah, but right when, and even so, when I was working there, I noticed that there was something that was giving one company an edge over another. And I discovered that it was the brand. So I was like, what is this thing? What is this thing that they call brand? And I just started digging and I found out. And I just studied and learned everything that I could. Um, and I started out designing logos, but then I got deep into strategy, which, basically like arms the design and makes it more effective, and actually gives numbers to the effort. You actually can see the um, the, the output in dollar signs. So yeah, that's how I got into this. And I've been working mostly with fashion, luxury, and lifestyle clients because I do have a background in fashion. Um, and yeah, it's been great ever since. I would say I've had a bunch of milestones. The biggest, I would say the one that I'm fond of, I would say I'm the most fond of the most. Maybe it's not even the biggest, but the one that's really dear to my heart because it happened at a point in my life when I felt like, I wasn't a great designer. I was having so much self-doubt. Was when I got an opportunity to do some brand identity work for one of the big TV networks here in the US. And Eventually, it didn't, they didn't use the design work, and it was because Disney had bought them out, and it was for a streaming service. So and because Disney Plus was going to be the main thing from then onwards, so it didn't make the light of day. But I sent the design work to Stefan Zagmeister because I think that was around the time that he started making these daily posts, and I thought nothing of it. And a couple of days later, I get this email from him at 3 a.m. in the morning, asking for a different version of the file that I sent him. And I was like, no, this can't be real, But then I thought about it. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe he asked one of his employees to do it, but then no, that person wouldn't be sending me an email at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's probably Stefan who's sending me an email himself. So I responded, and yeah, it was him. So next day, he posted it. My Instagram followers had, I think, doubled. No, it wasn't up to. It wasn't. I would say like 50% more. 50% more. It was like, what's going on? I didn't do anything. Then I found out that he posted it. So yeah, biggest milestone.
That's awesome. And for anyone who's watching, who is Stefan?
Stefan Zagmeister, I would say he's one of the top 10 graphic designers alive today. Yeah. Yeah.
And Stefan likes Shay's work. So that just says how good Shay's work is. It's amazing. I love that. It's a great story too. And we're going to dive into how ideas and creativity relate, especially because all of you have such a passion for design and how this all comes together. I would love to hear what you think about when I say, how does idea and creativity relate? I'm going to pass the mic to Kayla and have you answer first.
Ooh, how does idea and creativity relate? Well, I think all creativity starts as an idea, and creativity is the tool to kind of execute and bring it to life. So lots of people have ideas, but I think it takes a special someone to take that idea and actually execute on it and see it all the way through, which is kind of where I think all of our entrepreneur mindsets come into play. I think there's like a quote where it's like, I don't remember the whole quote, but it's like everyone has ideas, but it's like the one person who actually like sees it all the way through. And if you're a creative person, and a lot of us, I think, are really blessed, and I see it all the time with my clients, we don't realize how many people do not have that creative tool set to be able to actually execute it. Something as simple as getting a website up or getting a brand created, like they have to lean on people like us to do it. So I think that a lot of us creative entrepreneurs might take that for advantage, that we can just simply see something all the way through. If we want to start a clothing brand, we can do that because we can do the brand and the website and get it all up and running. If we want to start another side business, we could do that. So I think that creativity is kind of the tool to the end goal.
I love that. And that makes me feel so validated that it's not this like ethereal thing that's like, how do I really get value out of it, prove to people it has value. I felt like that a lot, that it was always like trying to prove the value of creativity, and explaining it as a tool, I think is super smart. I'm going to pass the mic to Shay and would love how you describe, how does idea and creativity relate?
Well, the way I see it, and this is going to be so much shorter than I think the way Kayla put it. Idea is like a seed, or well, anyone can have an idea, but only creative people can birth ideas. Yeah, and people have ideas in the shower every day, like I had the idea for YouTube when I was, I don't know what age, but I did not, even though I was a creative person, but I was not creative in a technical way that I could birth it. Someone else was, and they did.
I love that you were thinking about ideas like YouTube at that age. What are some of your other ideas that you've thought of as like a child? And it's like, if only I was like able to do it then. I've had those moments. I think that's really cool that you were thinking of like a YouTube idea at like 7. I don't think many people are like that.
Right. I think I was probably like 15 or 16 though, not super young. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So Nancy, gonna pass the mic to you. How does idea and creativity relate?
Well, first I have to play off of what Shay said because it reminds me of a story my mom had told me when she was at Juilliard. She had to take an English class, and she wrote a paper on, it had to be on something that you envisioned for the future. And she wrote a paper on moving sidewalks like we have at the airport now. And she got a failing grade because they said there's no way that this could ever happen. So my mother invented this, but anyway, it's the things you envision as when you're younger sometimes are really just fantastic ideas. For me, it's because of listening. That to me is the most important thing that really, really enables me to not only work with my clients, but also in running Creatives Roundtable, which those of you who don't know is a small group coaching and accountability group. I listen to what everybody says, as well as the members there listen to what everybody says, and you're then able to help them put their creative idea on its head and spin it around and come up with something else. And we actually did that just with even elevator pitches this week. And it's just I think when you listen, you can just get everything together and create very well.
That's awesome. Creators Roundtable is great. What an amazing way to brainstorm and get some like other creative juices flowing about it. I think when creative people get together, the most interesting conversations happen because it's limitless. Like we don't live in a world where it's like that would never work. Like everything could work. And I love talking to people like that because there's so many times where I'm speaking to someone super logical and everything I say, they're just like, it can't because of this and it can't because of that. And it's like, I don't live like that. I live in a world of just infinite everything, like omnipresence. And I feel like the creative communities that we're in do that too. And I love that. I think it's really important to be around people that are like that because it keeps that childlike wonder alive. If you're around only logical people, which I was in engineering, it started to like die off because they're just so logical. Nothing is beyond that. And it's just so interesting to be in this group and having those types of conversations. So we're going to get into our expert panel questions. And this is where you can really showcase what you do, how you do it, and why you're the absolute best. So don't be afraid to toot your horn. Definitely do it. This is the moment to make your mark and say all the things that you do great. So don't hold back. I really want to hear it. I'm going to pass the mic to Kayla. What does creative direction involve?
Yes. So that is my area of expertise. So creative direction, I'm pretty much the visionary. I always tell my husband all the time, like, I'm the visionary, you're the executor, just listen to my big idea. And the same goes with my team. So with all of our brands and our clients that work with us, I'm really the one that's like listening to their story and coming up with the big idea on how we're going to visually tell that, and then leading our designers and our illustrators through that and making sure that they're on the same path. So something I'm really, really good at is picking out those young designers and finding those creatives that maybe don't know they have that talent to be fostered, and really fostering them and helping them realize their potential. My very first designer I ever hired, she had 200 followers on Instagram, and she now has blown up. Her name's Courtney On. She like does her own thing. Ariana Grande like shared her stuff. I was like, I found her before anyone did, and she was like working with us. And I was able to really kind of like help her, you know, get her design chops and feel more confident in that. So when it comes to creative direction, that is definitely my area of expertise. However, I'm also a branding eye as well. I can create a pretty kick-ass brand, but I prefer to actually have the vision and then have someone else execute it and then just kind of like lead them to the end result.
Wow, cultivating talent. That is so true. I love that story and how you were able to see that special something, because that is, as the director, that is just so key to have a strong team behind you. And I love how you were like the thought and the strategy, and then you're helping someone else like bring it forward. Do you ever sometimes feel like a surrogate?
I love that. Kinda. I think one of the things that I love is just kind of realizing people's strengths and weaknesses. And I think a lot of young designers maybe will get down on themselves or feel like they're not a good designer, but they're just not doing the right thing. So when I bring a new designer on my team, it's like I'm not comparing them apples to apples to like this designer who's like a kick-ass illustrator. It's like, oh, you're really good at web design. So like, let's like foster and like help grow there for you. And then you can really be set up for success there. So yeah, I do feel like a lot of times, like all of my designers feel like my children, which when you're a business owner, it can be really, really hard, especially when you have to like put the boss creative director hat on, you know? But yeah, I just love doing that. And it's not only a passion of mine, it's something I'm good at, but it's something that I like love. I'm an Enneagram 3, so I don't know if you guys all know Enneagrams. So that's like one of our biggest like things that makes us feel fulfilled, is helping people reach their goals and their potential. So that's just like a huge passion of mine, and being able to do it with creatives is just an added bonus. And then building a business around it is just another added bonus.
That's awesome. I'll have to look up what Enneagram 3 means specifically. So thank you for that information. I feel like just that one thing about someone, you can learn so much. It's like such a big eye-opening thing to know. Super.
I make them all take the Enneagram test before they get hired. I like believe strongly in it.
That's awesome. So we're going to hear from Shay. Your expert question is, how do you build brand value?
How do I build brand value? I mean, first of all, I think I would just like talk about my process a little bit, because I mean the brand value gets built from there. So my process, I have a three I have three what I call it three-prong whatever process. First one is discovery. And this is where you start finding out things about the competition, the landscape of where your client is competing, you know, their space and whatnot, who their customers are. And that's where you actually start getting value and who they, you know, who they want to be. So that's the point where you start building value. And then by the time you move on to the strategy part, which is like the second part where you're doing value proposition and whatnot, from the information that you've gotten from figuring out who who the competition is or who the competitors are and who your customer really is and what the challenges of that landscape is, you know, then you could actually propose this certain type of value, which is going to connect with those ideal customers. And then you can start doing other things like positioning and whatnot. So yeah, that is basically like a huge schematic of how the value is built. And I mean, I can give you a really good example. I had this client who, this is probably like 2 years ago, was a luxury client, and she was just starting out from scratch, like, you know, didn't know anything. Dad was, you know, has a little bit of money, and I think she's 21. They never even went to fashion school. She wanted to start a luxury company, and she had an idea for the company. You know, she knew who her ideal customers were, but there were some other things that were vague. And so she came up to me after figuring out a business plan and coming up with a business. She had a really smart business model because she was supposed to be an ethical brand and all of that. But yeah, so from that point to like having a logo and other marketing collateral, she just had no clue. So I told her there was a huge gap, you know, and you have to, you know, build that thing which is intangible, which is going to connect with the ideal customers. You know them, and she knew them really, really well. And she knew their demographics, she knew their psychographics, she knew, like, you know, what makes them tick and why they spend money, and why, you know, they would gravitate away from other brands. But yeah, so I told her, you know, we need to dig deep, and we did. We did not even dig as deep as we could have, but within 8 weeks, all her merchandise was gone. All of her merchandise was gone. Yeah, within 8 weeks, when we were done with her brand development work.
That's an amazing success. And
Yeah.
so how is the brand doing now? And what's your advice for anyone that is in a similar position to where she was before she contacted you, and maybe they're looking for a branding expert like yourself, or kind of don't know what to do? They have this grand idea.
Yeah, those are really good questions. Now, I'm not sure where it is at right now. I've actually not talked to her in a while, but I would look up the website and see if she's taken up the signs that, you know, everything's sold out. Because you go to a website and you see sold out everywhere. Yeah. But yeah, anyone in her position, I would just advise them not to talk to somebody like me. You're going to spend some extra money, but it's going to be worth it, because you don't want to be throwing your marketing dollars or whatever it is. You just don't want to be throwing it out there. You know, maybe I'm going to hit, maybe I'm going to miss. There's a process that can help you zero in on, you know, what the target is, and all you've got to do is aim once, and, you know, you hit it. So yeah, find someone like me who's a brand strategist before you start designing anything visual.
Love it. Fantastic advice. Listen up, all you business owners. This is very important. We all must be getting this word out. I feel like it's the one big mistake business owners do. It's just not invest in that branding initially. I see it so much. And I think that that's just like my service, just like tell everyone that. That's going to be my next BNI commercial, actually. So Nancy, I'm going to pass the mic to you. Your expert question is, walk us through your design process.
My design process. Well, it really depends on the type of project. But normally I gather as much information as I can, similar to a branding process where you do a lot of discovery. I ask a lot of questions, but why, but how, just on and on to get as much information and dig as deep as I can with someone, whether I'm designing a huge document or I'm designing a logo as the beginning of a brand. And so when I gather all that information, I then actually pick up, I have like a gazillion of these little black markers. I don't like pencils. It's like a weird thing about me. My kids would know growing up that if they left their school pencils in my office, I would throw them away. But it was like a weird thing. But so I do sketches, and then I might scan them into the computer, refine them a little bit, and then I ask to present to the client. I don't email jobs to people. I actually will get on a Zoom call with them even to present a proposal to them. But I put any of their assets into real life situations. If it's a brochure, I might have it sitting on a table. If it's a logo, I'll have it on a storefront or on an apron or what, depending on what it's for. I think it's the best way to show something. I always give people afterwards and a lot of time to ask questions, but I send them a PDF and I tell them how to use a comment-enabled PDF, and get all of my edits back that way. Then go through and make the edits. If I feel it's necessary, we'll get back on Zoom or meet in person to go over some of the changes. And then we get it either live or apply it to all the other branded assets or print it, whatever it needs to be. But it's a pretty straightforward, simple process.
I really love the tangibility of that. So if someone is trying to, because you are definitely at a senior graphic designer because of all your expertise and the direction that you give to junior graphic designers. So for the junior graphic designers that are listening to this and need that advice, how would they apply this? And then also the revision process too, I feel like is something that junior designers, it takes experience to learn. What advice do you have for them?
I'll start with the second piece.
Mhm.
For making revisions, the reason that I like a PDF to be marked up, whether it's designing a logo, where I'll give them a few samples, or designing a 370-page document, whatever it is, I like them to mark their changes up, because when I start applying them, or when the junior designer starts applying those changes, you can delete each one to know that the change was made. We had actually discussed this for something that you had done for in Creative Cove, or one of your clients, where someone didn't make all of the changes. And that's really important, that when I give something back to a client, or when a junior designer gives something back to me, I actually see that they followed through and made all of the changes. I've read what they've said, what the client has said. I understand it. And if I don't, I ask questions. And I think that's really important. I think it's also really important that junior designers know that the number of rounds of changes that they are going to make should be in their contract. And they might give a flat fee to a client for a job, but there should be an hourly fee that you figured out that backs that up, because someone's going to go on to round 27 of revisions, and that's not covered by your, $3,000 fee or $10,000 fee, whatever it is. So that's really important. Of course, now, because I am a senior designer, I forgot what your first question was.
So when a junior designer is working on a graphic in a collaboration,
Yeah.
how do you suggest that they I feel like the design process needs to be refined with a lot of junior designers that I work with. They don't have that figured out yet. And I think really the heart of what I'm looking for is, should they be led step by step through like your graphic design process, or someone else that's leading them, or let them kind of like figure it out and then guide them along the way? Like, what's the best way to cultivate that talent?
I like to guide them. I think that, one of the things that I say to people, and I think that it's most people, Kayla worked for a company as well, the learning from a really good art director, someone who's been there and knows what to do, is really, really invaluable. And that will then enable you to be able to go out and work on your own. So whenever people are graduating from school and they say, I'm going to go freelance, and I understand it's a bad time to find a job necessarily, but I say if you can at least work under a good art director, it would be really good. A creative director, an art director, I lump all of us in together. I never got past the title graphic designer because I liked it. But I think that it's really, really important for someone like myself, when I'm hiring a junior designer to work on a project with me, to be very specific as to what milestones they have to meet, and to be very specific to say, there is no small, no stupid question. You throw everything at me that you got. I'd rather see things a million times so that we know that we're getting it right, than have you really pour your heart into something and have me say, yeah, that's not what I was talking about. So I think you really, really have to be very good. And I always write a creative brief for people that I'm hiring if my client has not created one, or I haven't created one with my client. And I think that really, really helps. And you have to say to people, if they 100% miss the mark, were you paying attention to what I gave you?
Yeah, that's really good advice. I appreciate that advice immensely. I think just fine tuning that process is essential for everyone involved so that it's the best type of experience for everyone. It's creating win-win situations, because that's hard. Like, you pour your heart into it and you're like, this is going to be great. They're going to love it. And then it's just like, didn't love it. Really off base. It's painful. I definitely had some situations like that interning in college, like just really like wild event flyers that did not align with a nonprofit mission. Like, just, they did not want a party poster. That's all I'll say. Just did not, it just didn't go. But that's really great advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I just also say that there's a story, there's a graphic designer who's no longer alive named Paul Rand. He's one of the great graphic designers. And he's one of the one concept graphic designers. He gives you one concept. That's your idea. If you don't like it, move on to someone else. And he was hired by Steve Jobs to design the Next logo for for Next computers. And Steve said, well, do you have anything else? And he goes, no, this is the design. And he had paid him about $100,000 for the logo. I don't know what other assets came with it. And he lived with the design because he had the great Paul Rand designed it for him. And it was great. And that's, it could be at any level where people are expecting more and asking more from you. And it's possible that Steve Jobs didn't give him a great creative brief, or didn't say what I want, or didn't, but you, at any level of design, whether it's Pentagram or us, people are going to come back to you and think that you missed the mark at some point, and you have to be able to as well take that criticism.
That's a great story. I got to look that up. I have not heard that. And I feel like I need to do some YouTubing after this and educate myself. That was awesome. Thank you all for your time. Real quick, we're going to do just like a circle around. You could tell people where they can find you, how they can connect with you so they can keep the conversation going. So I'm going to pass the mic to Kayla. How can people connect with you?
Yes, so our URL across everything is docs.design. That's our website URL, our Instagram handle, our Facebook handle, our TikTok handle, our Pinterest handle. So if you search that, we are on all and any platforms. Instagram is probably the best way to follow along, to see behind the scenes, see the clients working on, and also just see some of our brand reveals.
Thank you. Passing the mic to Shay. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, my handle on all social media platforms is Shay Charles, so @Shay Charles. And you can also check out my website, my personal website, shaycharles.com, and the company website, brandplusdesign.com.
Thank you. And Nancy, how can people connect with you?
Well, like everybody else, I have one thing that you can find me across many, which is Ruzo, Ruzow Graphics. It's on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I am not on Facebook anymore. And I also Creatives Roundtable, creatives with an S, roundtable.com. And we have a lot of events there as well, and people are welcome to join.
Thank you. And this is hosted by myself, Andrea, In Creative Company co-founder. You want to find out what In Creative Company is at increative.co. We have a lot more events, so you can find them all here under the events tab. And we have a co-working sprint, we have a sales sprint, we have a member mentoring session, creative pitch practice, another creative entrepreneur panel. You like what you had here today, you want to get this again, July 21st, we have a really great panel coming up, and our Fab Friday field trip, which is a fun New York City outing where we create content together. So lots of fun things happening. We are at our time, so I'm going to wrap this up really quick. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a lot of fun, and I appreciate your presence today.
Thanks for
Bye.
inviting me. Bye.
Mhm.